It's not because Christianity recommends, X, Y, and Z, but it's through Christianity that we become great.
They condemn racism, but they only condemn whites who happen to be racist.
And in a way, God is just whatever it is that keeps our civilization going.
White people are constantly being told that race is a social construct. It's not even biological.
And you think, where do you belong? Yeah. You belong in a shopping mall. There's nothing to you other than that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. I am your host, Matthew Drake, and this is the 14th... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Matthias today. Slight slip of the tongue, anyway. Yes, so this is the 14th episode of World of Scarcity. So thank you for joining us, everyone. We've got a special occasion because we are having a guest on who really needs no introduction. Christopher Cantwell, which, perfect for the 14 words. I will say, Chris has been pretty influential in just in my own development, my own migration from the libertarian world into talking about identity politics and white nationalism and all these fun ideas. And recently there's been some controversy swimming around, and I will say the thing that sounds a little trite, but I think it's true, is that I don't like getting into these kinds of infighting drama fights when I can avoid it, but I do whenever possible, whenever I think that there's an opportunity to extract principles from them that go beyond just the the typical, this person's awful, they're destroying the movement, and this, I like to get down to brass tacks and talk about some of these ideas so that we can help people navigate a little better in the future and hopefully prevent some of these things from happening. Yeah, so let's bring Chris on here. So Chris is of the Radical Agenda. And
good to be with you, man.
Yeah, and thank you for coming back. This is probably your first time on this particular channel, but I've had you on before. And so, well, we want to get into it. The things that I have on the docket list to cover are basically as I put in the title, doxing, defamation, and Fed posting. So where would you like to start, Chris?
Why don't we begin with let's start with defamation, because I think that's one we got to get that out of the way, because people have short attention spans. We don't want them to miss that.
Hang on. I think you might be roboty again. I thought that was fixed. People in the chat, let me know if he's coming through okay, or if he sounds roboty. I think.
Check 1 2.
Say it again.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Okay. I think it's finally working again.
Okay.
So continue.
So I think that defamation is probably the thing we want to go into first, so that the people with short attention spans don't miss this one, because it seems to me like this is a lesson that needs to get learned by people in our midst. I am of the opinion that I share the opinion with Donald Trump and a lot of other people that our libel laws are not nearly strict enough, and that the defamation of one's character ought to be a legally actionable thing. And we have a very serious problem in our society that there are huge barriers to taking legal action on that, especially when you're a public figure. But a person's reputation is literally the most valuable thing that they have. And so the idea that you're going to have a bunch of nationalists run around lying their asses off and defaming people, defaming combat veterans, no less, is something that I'm absolutely disgusted that there's not more social consequence to. And so
Okay.
that is
Can
largely
we
the
give
source of recent controversies.
Can we give people some background? Because some people are going to be new to all this. They don't know what's happened in even the past week. So I guess the defamation thing. So there's been people who have been harassing you through your website, and we don't have to mention them here, but as you've talked about, they were sort of fans of Dylan Roof, and they went around. Some people call them wignats, but they were very. I don't know if they meant it seriously or if they were trying to be humorous, but they wanted to get your site taken down, and it was very a clear effort to do that. And they, some of them were calling into your show to get it taken down. And also, some people were posting on your website, which they had been given.
Briefly, I'll just reiterate what happened, okay? Is that they were calling into the Radical Agenda, which, for those of you who are not aware, is a live, uncensored, open phones talk show, okay? And what they did was they found this app where they could change their caller IDs 1,000,000 times, okay? And the way that I screen calls on a Radical Agenda is through caller ID. And so, literally, I just couldn't take calls for almost 2 weeks because they would call like 100 times during the course of the thing. And one of the things that they started doing in the course of that was screaming the names of people who I have court orders that I'm not allowed to mention, which would get me jammed up legally if that stuff goes out over the radio. Okay, they're literally trying to get me in trouble with the law. One of them had been given a WordPress authors account on ChristopherCantwell.com because I was syndicating their podcast briefly. I stopped syndicating the show because we had ideological differences, but I didn't think the guy was hostile at the time, so I didn't disable his account. So, but then he went hostile. He changed the appearance of, like, if those of you who use WordPress, you know what I'm talking about. You can't change your username, but you can change the appearance of your name. So, like, your like link to your profile will still be the same, but you can change your name to Chris Cantwell, for example, which is exactly what they did. They wrote something that was an open letter to the FBI agent who was investigating Charlottesville. They posted pro Robert Bowers propaganda, all this stuff on my website, pretending to be me. And so, these are efforts to get me jammed up with the law, to defame me, to pretend to impersonate me, and to cause me all manner of trouble, to get me, to ruin my effort to do what it is that I'm doing. They're trying to destroy me. And so that is the entirely too brief description of sort of, some of these things that were done to me.
Okay. So that's where we are now. And you took care of the people, I guess, whoever was posting on your website. You revoked their permissions from your website, so they can't post.
As soon as I saw it, like, I got a phone call from a donor at like 6 o'clock in the morning telling me that there some nasty stuff was posted to my website. So I woke up and I went and I saw the account was logged in. I just purged the account, so everything they ever posted went away in a moment. Okay,
so there's that part, but then it seems there's also that these people have also been in connection with other groups or other people in the white nationalist sphere, other streamers on YouTube, and right. This is how they now they do have their own content, but it's not very widely distributed, right?
No, it's not widely distributed at all. Yeah. They get in other people's sphere, right? They can meme, and so they'll be in chats and people's discords and whatever, and they'll gain a bit of notoriety on the backs of others, as they did with me, right? They did the same thing with Daily Stormer before they did this to me. They did this to Daily Stormer. And so they find themselves in other people's sphere, and they use those platforms from which to launch defamations. And so, Vanguard streaming, heel turn, whatever. I don't watch all of these streams. I just know what comes back to me.
Right. And I've told you I've been on a couple of these channels myself. But I guess where we get into some of the controversy was you, as a way of dealing with this, you sent an email to Jared Holt saying that, let's see, I've got it right here. I've got some internecine conflicts which would be best solved by my competitors getting deplatformed. Would you like to draw attention to some alt-right streamers who are raking in the cash with YouTube and Streamlabs?
Yeah. Subject line, fucking over Nazis.
Fucking over Nazis. Yes.
Yeah. And so look, here's my
And
reasoning.
that got
behind
his
this, okay?
attention.
Yeah. So of course, and then Jared Holt, because Jared Holt had already, well, I don't know how deeply involved Holt was, but apparently Angry White Men was already about to publish an article about this. They had already done a months-long investigation into these guys. With exactly the information that I was going to bring to the attention of Holt. Angry White Men was all over it, and they had a lot more information, as it turned out, right? So once Holt publishes that email, as a completely unprofessional jack-off that I probably should have expected him to be, the next day or within 24 hours, Angry White Man publishes this piece, right? And so the reasoning behind this, in any case, is like, these guys are using YouTube, which I've been deplatformed from. They're using YouTube to broadcast a message. They're using Stripe to finance the broadcasting of that message. I've been deplatformed by both of these things. People think that I'm a jerk off for going and contacting Jared Holt in order to employ him in the course of my vendetta. Well, if a bunch of guys are using YouTube and Stripe to attack me, well, I would go ahead and say that if you're concerned about the adherence to the existing powers, YouTube and Stripe are far more powerful than Jared Holt any day of the week. And so, this is how these guys want to operate. I say, all right, well, that's the nature of this conflict, right? That you're doing disreputable things, you're dishonest. So then, I will do what I have to do to retaliate against you.
Right, and I'm right there with you when it comes to, like, there needs to be some kind of consequences for defamation and so on. Now, we do have some laws on that, such as libel laws and so on, but it usually doesn't apply to public figures and so on. So I'm guessing, you didn't really have a legal course to deal with these guys, right? Plus, most of them are anonymous.
Well, the thing is this: if I could go and if I had money to hire an attorney, I could do it, right? So, but an attorney's not going to take a defamation case, right, on contingency unless he has an expectation that he's going to rake in a whole bunch of money, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to hire some attorney. I'm going to say, hey, lawyer, a bunch of guys who I don't know said a bunch of untrue things on YouTube. Can I get you to go track them down and then find out if they've got any money if we manage to win this lawsuit, which has huge barriers because I'm a quote unquote public figure. It's a ridiculous obstacle in order to accomplish, right? Now, if I was some globalist elite type character with a bunch of free legal help at my disposal, then I could do stuff like that, right? I go and I file a lawsuit. I tell YouTube I need the customer information for this person who said X, Y. Like, you could do these things, but it's massively expensive. And since I've been deplatformed by YouTube and Stripe, and I'm struggling to get by while everybody does everything in their power to kick me while I'm down, it's a little bit it's cost prohibitive to even try,
Right. So Dan sent a super chat saying, viewing us versus them is not the way a movement should operate. HuffPo does not try to destroy CNN. They work together. Very disappointed in Cantwell. So what would you say to these people who are like, well, yes, these people are causing problems, but they still are, in this dissident movement, however we want to define it. So
whatever movement I'm involved in has strong penalties for defamation of character. For being a dishonest person, you suffer in my movement. Now, if that's not the alt-right, then fine. That means we're in different competing, political spheres, So if your movement is one where a bunch of guys can go out and defame somebody's character and lie their asses off and not suffer, that's a completely different political sphere than mine.
Right. Now, what about, okay, so let's talk about defamation then. So do you think that these people telling lies about you, do you think that them losing all of their way of making an income is a fair reparation for, telling lies about someone or so on? Do you think that is what, let's say you were a judge in that situation, if you could be objective about it, right? Do you think that that's a fair thing, or do you think you overshot it in order to, I don't know, make a point or something like that?
So if I were a judge with legal authority to impose penalties, then I would try to do something commensurate, But again, it's like, but there's no means by which to do that, And as I say, it's like, look, I recently had Kurt Doolittle and John Mark on a Radical Agenda talking about proprietarianism, and I don't want to come off as an advocate of that thought process, but one of the things that John Mark said was the reason that we have part of the reason that we have so much trouble in our society is that our laws are deficient and it causes retaliation cycles. Okay, so somebody does something, somebody else has to go get back at them, and they go back and forth because there's no legal remedy to the thing. Okay, so when they come after me, again, they're using it's so funny to me. They're using YouTube and Stripe. So for me to go and adhere to Jared Holt is like it's magnitudes less than what they did to me, frankly. Okay. So if they lose their income, well, the reason they're losing their income is because they're in violation of the terms of service of the service that they're using. Okay. I already suffered this consequence. And so they're using unfair competitive practices business-wise in order to defame me and to use these services illegally.
Wait, what is unfair about it again? That they're
all right. So in a proper market economy, we all have to abide by the same fucking rules, right? I mean, so if I'm banned from YouTube and I can't do hate speech on YouTube, but they can, right? They're breaking their contract with YouTube. They're gaining an unfair competitive advantage over me, right? And they're using that in order to commit a defamation, which in my opinion ought to be legally actionable, right? So that's the way I view it in any case.
Right. So what about these people who are tangentially related? Because for instance, I'm having you on my platform, and just because I'm having you on, people are gonna criticize me and so on. But I don't think the sins of the guest should fall upon the sins of the should be transferred to the host, if you will. So is that all that's going on? Is these tangentially related groups who might have had people from this group on their podcast, aren't they just tangentially related? They're not necessarily defaming you, are they?
Well, what you run into is this is like black bloc tactics, right? I don't have time to listen to all these assholes talk, right? All I know is the source of my trouble. And so, one of the things, here's an example, okay? What actually triggered me to go to contact Holt was Joaquim, right? So I find out that Joaquim is involved in this nonsense, and Joaquim, he's up at the top of heel turn, right? Like I said, so somebody said, how do we settle this? And I said, well, Joaquim went out and said I ratted on Ram. He said that, whatever. He said all these things that were demonstrably untrue. They're on his Twitter. I've got his screenshots of it, right? He's lying to people. And I'm like, well, what is with this guy? And somebody says, well, how do we solve this conflict? I'm like, fire him from heel turn. And somebody says, well, he's like a top executive of the thing, or whatever the fuck that means. The executive of a YouTube channel with 14,000 subscribers, whatever the fuck that is, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, if he's a top dog at this thing, well, then I'll attack the fucking thing, right? Now, in the orbit of this is Vanguard Streaming, which I don't even know who's all involved, right? I know they broadcast Goy Talk in a gas station and Alt-Right Poker Night, right? Alt-Right Poker Night is like I don't listen to his fucking things. Again, people tell me what's going on, and I'm like, okay, well, what is it?
Well, I do actually know somewhat what's going on now. So after, heel turn, these other guys got their Streamlabs shut down. So the heel turn is no more. They're splitting into, I think it's 5 different channels or something. And Richard Spencer's going to be on his own, and Vanguard's going to have something, and then there's some other ones too.
Well, whatever happens afterwards, fine, right? But what happens is Joaquim is defaming me under his own name. He's at the top of heel turn. So I say, I'm going to go get heel turn deplatformed, right? And I didn't do that right away, by the way. I talked to a whole bunch of people. I got fucking Richard Spencer's cell phone number. I'm leaving him voice messages and sending him text messages, and the fucking faggot's not getting back to me, right? So I'm like, okay, this is people are going to allow this to fucking go unpunished. Well, I'm certainly not, right? Like, I'm going to retaliate. I'm going to cause somebody to suffer over this. You know what I'm saying? And so this is why
Joaquim,
I sent the
I'm not
Holt.
too familiar with what Joaquim said about you. But he's definitely not in this group that we were describing in the beginning. I want to make that clear. He's I guess maybe he was repeating some of the misinformation. That
No,
was put out by the group.
Joaquim flat out made things up. Joaquim went on the attack knowingly, that dishonestly, and he's a serial defamer. This is not the first time he's done this, right? So he posts a video of me on heel turn talking about how I gave over a body camera video to the FBI, and then he says that video was central to the Ram indictment. Those are the words out of his mouth on his Twitter account. Okay, that's a flat out lie. You know, and it's something that any idiot who bothered to read the indictment would know, right? So he's purposely lying. He's defaming me for the purpose of defaming me. He's doing it.
How do you know he's not an idiot?
Because he knows better, right? The guy wouldn't have fucking been in the position that he was in if he was that fucking stupid, right? He knows what he's doing. He posted a video saying that the video said something other than what it says. You know what I'm saying? The guy knows what he's doing. He's taking advantage of the low IQs of some people in his audience. He's counting on people to not know to pay attention.
The way that this works generally, I would think, is so if someone is telling information that's false, as they say, fake news, then you go to that person and tell them, okay, this is not true. You know, whether that's you, whether that's people in his orbit, and then if he does not correct or take it down, you know, which that's why we hate the mainstream media, is that they, if they ever do that, it's in like it's hidden, it's buried somewhere where nobody ever finds out about it. So the lie is already out there, and they're like, they issue this poor correction. Did he ever try to make any corrections or anything?
No. By the time he ended up making his Twitter account private, and as a matter of fact, then people were sending me screenshots from his Twitter account after he made it private, right? So like, which means that he makes his Twitter account private and he continues a defamation, right? So like the guy's a serial defamer. He's a liar, and so you know, I'm like, all right, this guy has to fucking go, right? And so, you know, it seems to me like he's going. It seems to me like I accomplished the goal, right? And so, you know, I'm more or less satisfied, you know, with the outcome of that. But, you know, a penalty had to be fucking imposed. And it's like this thing that we're involved in is complete shit that it got that far. You know what I'm saying? The fact that I'm raising this concern and I'm like, hey, this guy is out there fucking lying his ass off about me in a demonstrably false way. Everybody who bothers to check it will know that he's lying, and nobody wants to do anything about it. They're like, well, but I'm making money off super chats, and therefore fuck Cantwell. And it's like, fucking fuck you. I bled and went to jail for this thing, you asshole. Show me some fucking respect, you know? And if people are not going to do that, well, then, you know, then the conflict must escalate until a resolution comes.
Right. Now, I think where a lot of people were less sympathetic towards you was in just the fact that you went to the enemy to accomplish this goal. And I think you might have said something like, well, I don't have the power to accomplish it, but I know that these people over here certainly do have the power. So I'm just going to sort of sick my enemies on this other problem that I have.
But keep in mind, okay, again, it needs to be reiterated constantly. They're using YouTube and Stripe to do this to me, okay? They're adhering to my enemies already. They're being broadcast and financed by the people who have tried to bankrupt and silence me. So, like, how is it better for them to use YouTube and Stripe to broadcast and finance a defamatory message than it is for me to tell the truth to a reporter?
Well, I wouldn't say they're being financed by YouTube. They're being financed by other
Stripe is the payment processor for Streamlabs. Okay, so that means that they're being, you know, Stripe is their fucking financial tool. Well, I was deprived of access to that financial tool in August of 2017. Right,
and that's horrible. That's a travesty.
And everything that I've been doing since is to try to get myself back on my feet. And as soon as I start to do that is when these people start to try to fucking kick me while I'm down. They're trying to prevent me from succeeding. Right. And so that is the fucking problem, is that these guys are being financed, you know, and they're being broadcast, they're being amplified and financed by my fucking enemies, by people who are by companies, by corporations who are openly hostile to the movement, and they're using that to go and fucking defame a guy who bled and went to jail for the thing. So fuck them. For them to go and use those platforms to broadcast a lie versus me to inquire with a reporter about whether or not I want to tell him the truth, they're committing the more serious crime, in my opinion.
Right. And, you know, I think, so there are people out there who would say, well, just just let it go. It's not that big of a deal. And I can see your argument on why you would want to, punish people for, doing things which are spreading disinformation, if you will. So I don't necessarily want to argue with you on that. Why did you write in the letter to Jared why did you write it in such a provocative way? Because obviously you probably had to have some idea that it was gonna get out there. Like, he's not an honest person, so
I had every intention of it getting out there. If things had gone the way I wanted them to, I would have taken credit for the deplatforming afterwards, right? The reason that people have so much shit to talk about me is because I have given them all of the shit to talk about, right? And so every time I've talked to the media, every time I've talked to the government, I've told people exactly what I said and did, all right? And so when people call me a fucking snitch and a liar, it's more lying, bullshit, defamation from them, right? And so if I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in the way I wanted to accomplish it, I would have taken credit for it afterwards. And the reason that and I'll tell you something else, the reason I worded it in the way I did was because I hoped that it would discredit Holt afterwards. If Jared Holt was seen as assisting me by taking down my competitors, it would have made him look like fucking shit in the aftermath. Okay, now
the reason it backfired apparently is that they already had a bunch of this stuff, and I want to make this point if people don't know it. It seems like they had done a whole bunch of research and were ready to take down these accounts or something,
right,
or report them, and so okay, heel turn, but then. So let's look at Goy Talk. Did you have an issue with them specifically?
Not with Goy Talk specifically, but my understanding, Goy Talk brought me on their show to respond to defamations that the gas station was airing, right? And again, I don't listen to these things. All I know is what people tell me. So when Goy Talk invites me on the show, they say, well, on the gas station the other night, these guys were saying that you're a meth addict and a rat and a fucking homosexual. And I'm like, well, let me come on your show and fucking say for the 1,000th time that I'm not sucking dick for drugs and fucking ratting out my friends to the government, right? And so, but the problem is this. So these guys, since they're violating the YouTube terms of service, they don't archive the fucking streams. And so when they bring me on to respond to defamations which aired on their streaming network, and then they take the fucking video down, and then they air the defamations all over again when they let these assholes back on their fucking show. And so it's like this is a continuing problem. And if somebody
why did they take your video
retaliation, then what happens?
Why did they take your video down?
Because they take all the videos down. They leave hardly any of those streams up. That's how they keep their YouTube channels in their Streamlabs account, right? What they're doing is in violation of the terms of service. So if they left them up, you'd lose their accounts.
But then don't they also take down the ones defaming you?
Right, but if they continue to defame, right? So what this whole entire thing, what these guys do is they take the fucking super chats and run, right? They do the live stream, they air whatever they air, and then they delete the fucking videos and they take their money, right? Well, if you're going, if it was a thing that just happened and it stopped, fine, but it didn't, right? They continue when they let these guys back on to repeat their fucking horse shit. Well, at what point do I say, I'm not going to respond to these defamations every other day, right? If you're going to constantly let people say that I'm a fucking meth addict and a rat, well, I'm not going to come on your show every 2 weeks and respond to the same lies. At some point, I got to shut you the fuck up.
Well, where I draw the line is blaming people for guests that they've had on, because if someone comes on my channel and starts defaming you, I'm probably gonna say, that doesn't sound like Chris. I'd want to talk to him and so on, and he has done a lot for the movement, but if they're on just by virtue of being on my channel, you're not gonna hold me responsible for having that person on, would you?
I don't know. If you fucking do it twice a week, I might get fed up with it, as a matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? So if you continue to do it, then I'm going to assume that there's some hostile intent there, right? And so
right.
If you have somebody on who's like a fucking enemy of mine and he drops some shit about me, it's like, all right, well, I have a reasonable expectation that you're a decent person, you know how to fuck me, right? But if there's a repetitive theme of people going out and fucking defaming me and people giving that a platform, then I have to do something to stop that from occurring.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly these guys have not defamed you as much as the mainstream media has. Would you say that's fair?
No, as a matter of fact, what they did to me makes what the mainstream media did look fucking responsible by comparison. Okay,
Is that right?
so like at least what fucking Vice News did was a fucking video of me saying things. Now it's maybe deceptively edited, right? But
They
Vice
call
News
you a
did it-
Nazi and a white supremacist and
I
a
don't care. I
fascist.
fucking, white people are fucking pretty good in my book. And if that makes me a fucking white supremacist and a Nazi, I don't care anymore, right? Like I don't even care about it. The way that they choose to term these things, I'm sick of arguing about language left with.
well, the crying Nazi part that is defamatory though.
Well, it's shitty, right? But it's an insult. It's not a flat out lie, right? It's like, okay, well, your opinion is that my views are Nazism.
You're right.
And
It's
I
not
broke down in
defamatory.
tears, right? It's different when somebody says Cantwell was central to the indictment of Ram. That is a lie. It's a provable lie. It's a lie that the guy absolutely should have known was untrue. The saying that I am addicted to methamphetamine is a lie that no honest person believes. And so when they're saying that is worse than what Vice News did.
I think one of the reasons that it's worse, at least from your perspective, is that you don't expect it. You expect it from the left, and you don't expect to be attacked from the right. And
well, the thing is, at this point, I fucking do, right? Like what I've concluded, and it's not something that like I just came up with in the course of this, okay? I went down to fucking Charlottesville thinking that we were onto something here, okay? And I said, well, I found myself in this thing because I wouldn't lie, and that got me fired from the radio. And I just assumed that everybody else is in the same spot. They're just too honest to keep on lying about race, and so they're all in the same boat as me. Well, it's not the case. This thing is full of crooks and fucking liars, and they get caught and they get exposed, and there's no consequences for it. You know what I'm saying? And so now I'm at a point where it's like, again, it's like black bloc tactics. I don't even know who the fuck half these people are. So it's like trying to fucking, pick them out of a fucking lineup is impossible because everybody's an anonymous bot account, right? But, there's a constant theme of dishonest people not suffering any social consequences for their dishonest fucking behavior in this thing. And it's like you came from the libertarian space with me. You know exactly they had the same fucking problem over there, And so it's like at what I'm sorry, I'm off on a fucking tangent now, but like this is what I'm getting at is that like the entire thing is such a fucking mess that I'm fed up with it.
Are you implying that these guys are set up or they're controlled opposition or something?
There has to be some component of that in this, okay? Like, what other purpose could it serve? You know what I'm saying? Like, who in their right mind thinks that the fucking white nationalist movement benefits from destroying the radical agenda? Well, no honest person believes that, right? And so the people who are trying to destroy the radical agenda, why are they trying to do that? Well, I can't be inside of all of their fucking heads all the time, but I'd be shocked to find out that there weren't elements of fucking government agencies or fucking Jewish power involved. And when you have a bunch of dishonest people using anonymous accounts, well, of course it's going to be hostiles who are going to embed themselves in that.
Right. So we have the issue of the going after these people, but tell me about doxing. Was that part of your way of dealing with these people as well?
I doxed one guy. If I get the opportunity to dox other ones, I will. I mean, it's a weapon to be wielded against enemies, right? These guys don't want to be discovered for who they are, and the one effective method of shutting them down, as we found out with Ricky Vaughn, is to fucking unmask them. And that's and anybody who doesn't like that, well, then stop fighting with men who have reputations, right? Because that's the downside of fucking around with somebody who can afford to have their information published is it's asymmetric, right? It's an advantage that I have over you. Whatever the damn conflict is, I'm going to use what advantage I can to overcome the conflict, right? And so if people are like hiding behind anonymous accounts and I have the ability to go and fucking unmask those people, you better fucking believe it, And so That's why I was supportive of doxing fucking Ricky Vaughn. It's why I'll be supportive of doxing fucking dozens of other guys. And the truth of the matter is, I think that we'll all be better off when that becomes a more prolific phenomenon.
Well, it's this whole controlled op thing. It's so tricky because there's no way to know for sure, obviously. So I just feel hesitant about saying, we have to go after these people because they don't have our interest in heart or whatever, because we can't imply intentions. A lot of people think you have ill intentions, right? And
no honest, informed person believes that, though, right? The people who say that either don't know what happened and have purposely chosen not to inform themselves, or they're dishonest, right? So these guys attacked me. They tried to destroy me, and I retaliated harshly. I tried to harm them, right? And that's exactly what I should do. And any honest person who observes that, I'm not going to put you in a spot where you have to agree or disagree. But in my opinion, any honest person who observes that has to understand the merit behind it, okay? And so if these guys are running around and they're trying to destroy my fucking show after all of the things that I've gone through, after the fucking media came after me, I have to get deplatformed, I go to jail, I've been sued, I'm still being sued, right? I got all these fucking things going on. And these guys are trying to fucking kick me while I'm down. Who in their fucking right mind thinks that's at the very least, is it the best use of your time? You're trying to take on the left. You want to beat the Democrats. You want to beat the global elites, and you spend your time trying to fuck the radical agenda over. These guys put a lot of effort into this, and so if anybody believes that that's a noble effort, then they're a fucking retard and shouldn't be allowed in the fucking ethno state just based on IQ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Eternal Armenian sent a super chat. Joachim used to host backyard blood sports with a tranny and was screaming at people on the IBS apocalypse. Good riddance to that neocon. Yeah, I can't confirm any of that stuff, but I guess some people don't like him as well. So, okay. Getting back to doxing. It's interesting. Twitter, the Twitter CEO was talking to Joe Rogan, or they might still be live actually, but just today. And they're talking about how, you're not allowed to dox on Twitter, but they have a specific definition of doxing, which is releasing addresses. So for people. So if you just release some person's name, which I guess some people did during the Covington boys or something, then that's okay with them. So would you draw a line in terms of like how far you would go with the doxing? Because at some point you could be putting people's not just people's income but people's safety on the line.
Yeah, I want to put their safety on the line, right? The whole point of this is that I'm saying that what they did is legally actionable, okay? That means that, let me just, I'll try to put it in libertarian terms, right? If something's legally actionable, it means that I have the right to use fucking force to compel compliance, right? And so, if it was, imagine this for a second, okay? Let's say that I go take a road trip down to Ohio and I put Dallas Medina in the fucking ICU because he's running his mouth around Twitter conspiring with Antifa and doxing my address, right? Well, if I go and I put Dallas Medina in a fucking hospital, what do you think Dallas Medina is going to do? He's going to go to the fucking cops and I'm going to be sitting in a jail cell, right? So, how am I going to compel your fucking compliance? Well, yeah, like if you get hurt in the process of that, yeah, I'm saying that I would hurt you myself, right? If I had the legal authority to use the violence on my own, I would. So if I'm going to dox your name and then the Reds are going to get their hands on you, well, don't fucking attack me.
But let me stop you, Chris, because that would be the perfect way of dealing with this, honestly. It's just, in my opinion, is like just brawl it out, Go for it.
Right, but last time I fucking got in a brawl, I ended up in jail, right?
No,
so,
I understand.
There's
a lot of complications to say in this world we live in. That's not possible simply for a lot of reasons. We're on the internet. Some people are anonymous, so I understand that's not an outcome. But do you see how it complicates things, especially if other people are getting dragged into this from the other side, Jared Holt and other people who may not have been as egregious. I would say that yes, the libertarian argument is true, but also in libertarianism, there's a degree of proportionality, right? And so some people, their crimes, I'm not sure if I'd necessarily chalk it up to crimes, but some people, it falls short of what some of these other wignats who started this whole thing with you, and the fear that I have is that it'll snowball and people are going to say, well, screw Chris now. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to screw Chris over now because he screwed me or my friends over. And then isn't that just what they want, is to conquer and divide?
Well, that seems to be what's happening, right? So the remedy to this is for fucking people in the thing to show some fucking integrity, okay? So when people are broadcasting defamatory messages, the answer to that is to ostracize those fucking people. And if that does not happen, then the retaliation cycle will continue, and it will escalate, and it will escalate until fucking enough people get hurt that action is taken. That's literally what has to happen, right? So, like, fucking, if there's no goddamn pain compliance in the thing, then what's to stop anybody from behaving badly?
Well, I think each of us does have to draw a line, like I was saying earlier, if you have somebody on, there's a line there. But you would say, if you make that a repeated pattern and it seems like your show is just the Defame Chris show, then that's another matter. I want to ask you, though, I guess for some reason I haven't gotten caught up in this drama as much as you. Maybe that's just the abrasive nature, but why do you think that there were all these, let's call them bad actors, in your podcast? Or, part of it, I think you do have to admit that it was a mistake trusting Mackie.
Yeah, it was the mistake was this, okay? And I sort of went into this on the most recent episode of the Radical Agenda, which is that you had this thing, the alt-right optics debate that emerged in the wake of Charlottesville, okay? And so you've got a bunch of people who say, get off the streets, shut the fuck up, a bunch of non-specific optics crap that was obnoxious. Go put on red clown shoes and do stupid fucking asshole things with the Daily Storm or whatever nonsense they were pitching, right? And their way of imposing this was to fucking silence opposition and to defame people, right? And so I'm like, well, the people who were involved in that, we of Daily Stormer, TRS et al, were acting in bad faith, in my opinion. The problem that I ran into afterwards is that I fell for a trick, in my opinion, which is that the other side of that, part of the other side of that was these guys who were the fucking Dylan Roof fan club, okay? And they're like, fuck your optics, I'm going to talk about church shootings, right? And so you end up with this stupid dichotomy that's put before you, which is, are you a terrorist or a cuck, And what we realized when we fucking are involved in these things long enough is that you're met with those stupid choices all the time, right? And that's not it's not a real choice. It's a fucking con, And so I fell for this and I let these guys be in my orbit because I'm like, okay, well, I'm and another motivation that was clouding my judgment at the time is that I was out on bail, right? And they kept on trying to revoke my bond for things that I was saying on my website, right? And so I'm like, I'm not going to allow you to, I'm not going to allow the court system to silence me, right? I'm not going to allow these people who frame me for a crime to shut me the fuck up. I'm going to make it worse, right? So like before Charlottesville, I was really like explicitly like against the Nazi branding, for example, right? But then I read George Lincoln Rockwell and I see like his reasoning for flying the swastika and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, this seems like a pretty good idea. Like, I'll be a Nazi podcast now. They're already calling me a Nazi. I'll be a Nazi podcaster. And okay, you guys are the Dylan Roof fan club. You want to go post some bowl cut memes? Fantastic. And then they tried to violate my bond for posting a bowl cut meme to fucking Gab, right? And when they lost that fight in court, that's when I started syndicating that other show, right? When I gave this guy the account was a retaliation for a failed effort to, revoke my bond. And so I just kept escalating this conflict. with the court system in Virginia, right? That they're trying to shut me up, and I'm like, well, I'll just keep on making it worse because I'm not going to allow you to silence me. Right now, that clouded my judgment, and it did. It caused me to make some mistakes, and I had these guys in my orbit, and I realized, that they were a problem to some degree earlier on because. Like they would just attack anyone who even came into my Telegram group. A woman shows up and it's immediately get in the kitchen whore. You know what I'm saying? We had a guy in the chat who was 20% Jewish or something like that, and they just absolutely would not abide this guy's presence, and they had to disrupt the fucking thing until I kicked them out of the chat. They were hostile and disruptive to everything, but my judgment was clouded by the circumstances that I was under down there. Now. When I came back and when I got back to New Hampshire, I started trying to fucking dial the shit back. These guys start fucking attacking me. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to fucking get you out of my fucking orbit, and once they could not, once they could not use my platform for what they wanted to use it for, then they tried to destroy it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's good. You wanna talk about Fed posting? Well, we already talked about the Fed posting, but the Fed talking to Feds and stuff. Because this is another thing that comes up.
Yeah. Well, so here's, the entirety of my discussions with the fucking federal government have been, I went and I met with them while I was still down there in Virginia, and I gave them body camera video, which was going to come out in the civil case anyway. Okay. And I told them about what Antifa did. All right. And for this, Weave starts in with Cantwell's ratting everybody out. And I'm like, well, ratting everybody out for what? This wasn't a criminal conspiracy. Why is some Jew in a foreign country trying to tell the public that we were involved in some kind of violent crime? And so, and by the way, all these guys who are now calling me a Fed were perfectly okay with that, right? They were like, yeah, you did what you had to do. And then more recently, when after I came back, while I'm down in Virginia, it comes to my attention that the FBI is in my Gmail account. Okay, the reason I ended up meeting with the FBI is because they followed up on a lead which they could have gotten in no other way than reading my Gmail account. Okay, and so I say, all right, this makes sense that they would be investigating me. I'm involved in a news story of the fucking year, right? So okay, that tells me that you're looking into the other side, and that it gives me an interest in talking to them. In any case, that tells me, more importantly, that I am being watched, and that if you're going to fucking, and if you're coming to me with dangerous and illegal fucking things, you're putting me in danger and everybody else. Right. And so a subsequent communication that I had with the FBI, I got an email in the middle of the night from fucking Jordan Jareb in Florida, who's on a court order. He's on electronic monitoring. He's not supposed to leave the house. He's not supposed to be on social media. He sends me an email with the subject line, urgent, Republic of Florida about to resist the government. And he tells you he's going to cut off his fucking ankle monitor, and he's going to resist the government, unspecifically what resistance he's going to offer, right? And I say to him, fuck it, you better tell me right now that you're going to turn yourself in peacefully when this goes bad, or I'm going to tell the FBI about what you just told me. And so he says, yeah, we're not planning to use violence, whatever, okay? He calls in a radical agenda about it, and I leave it alone. But then this motherfucker won't leave me alone, right? And I say, stay the fuck away from me. You're an unhinged nutcase. I don't want anything to do with you. And he's calling me from different phone numbers. He's contacting me from different social media accounts. He's doing all the shit. And I'm like, stay away from me, stay away from me, stay away from me. He won't. And so I fucking pass that. I say, I'm going to tell the FBI what's going on with you if you don't stay the fuck away from me. And he won't stay away from me. So I did exactly what I said I was going to do. And I told the fucking FBI everything I knew about Jordan Jareb, And I said this when I came home. I said that on stage 4, episode 1, I said, people want to call me a Fed? Fine. Assume that I'm a Fed and keep your stupid asshole illegal stuff away from me. I don't want anything to do with it, And so if people choose to do that afterwards, I have no fucking sympathy for them. And again, it's like bitching with the leftists about whether or not you're a Nazi. It's just not worth doing anymore. I'm like, yes, I tell you exactly what I did. You want to call me a snitch? Fine. But I'm not your co-conspirator, retard. If you and I enter into some criminal conspiracy and I rat you out, that's snitching in my book, right? But if you involve me in something that I don't want to be involved in, are you out of your fucking asshole mind? Yes, I'll fucking turn you over to the government. I hope you get caught. I don't want you anywhere fucking near me with that shit.
Right. Now, do you think this is like heightened even more so because of your profile and because of who you are and that you've gone to jail and everything. Because I think the average person, I think I would give them the advice of, just don't talk to these people. Like, it's almost never going to be to your advantage to talk to these people. Because you do always have the option to just either not reply to this email or just say no or something like that to make it clear. Because I understand your concern is like, okay, the FBI might get a hold of this information or something and use it against you. And because you're so high profile, I think it's more understandable then, because, they really want to nail you for some reason. And you've already been specific about the fact that you are going to do this, right? As you've said before, you're completely transparent about everything, almost to a fault. And so, people know when they send these emails that you have this intention of doing that.
The whole point of it, look, let me put it in these terms, okay? I'm fucking serious, okay? And so, like, when I say something, people better fucking take me goddamn seriously, If I say, don't contact me with your illegal shit, and then you contact me with you, if I say, don't contact me with your illegal shit, or I will turn it over to the government, and then you do that, you better believe that I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, And more importantly, this thing that we are involved in, I take seriously. And I don't think, unfortunately, I really don't think that most of these people do, okay? They're more concerned with their fucking super chats or whatever asshole fucking thing motivates them than actually goddamn accomplishing anything. Now, if we are behaving like members of a prison gang and saying, all right, I'm no longer going to support the president of the United States. I don't want the Republican Party to win. I'm not going to cooperate with the government when there's an investigation. I'm not going to, like, all they want to do is be anonymous on YouTube and Fed post about fucking overthrowing the government and race war. Well, those are not serious people, right? Those are not people who are actually trying to accomplish things. And so those people are not, they're fundamentally not trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do. Okay. Now, the government is a fucking factor in our existence. And if we don't interact with that institution, or if we don't take that institution seriously, then it's going to crush us, And so if somebody wants to go and fucking come into my orbit with things that can get me fucking locked up or implicate me in crimes, those people are a threat to my safety that prevents me from carrying on the important work that I'm doing. And so, what do I have to do to stop this from happening? If somebody wants to prevent me from broadcasting my message by getting me deplatformed, well, then what do I have to do to stop that from occurring? Whatever it takes is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to get hung up on stupid fucking asshole moral questions about it.
I understand you that, but like the FBI wants, I don't think they're definitely not our friend, and they certainly have a lot more power than these other people to do harm to you.
Well, they certainly do, right? And so, like, it's not generally speaking in anybody's best interest to communicate with the FBI. It's generally not, right? But the FBI is listening to my communications whether I want them to or not, right? And so I want to, as loudly and proudly as I can. What's going to happen? You're going to see a lot of things that are going to be really interesting come this civil suit later this year, okay? So, like, this civil case is going to be on trial, right? So what happens when I go down to Charlottesville is I'm a guy who, like, it says it's an entertainment program, therefore I can get loose with my words, right? And so I go down to fucking Charlottesville, I get framed for a fucking crime, and then every outrageous thing I've ever said is used against me in fucking court, right? Well, I want to be as a loudly law-abiding citizen as I fucking possibly can be, okay? And everybody who's fucking serious in this thing would do well to do the same, If you're screaming on YouTube about how willing you are to break the fucking law and to do things that are violent and dangerous, well, that's going to come back to fucking bite you if you are going to do anything. Now, most of these people never are, right? They're going to hide behind their fucking stupid mask and they're going to do whatever they do. But, for those of us who actually desire to have an impact on the outcomes in our society, those institutions are going to be a part of it. And if we're afraid to interact with the state, then we're never going to be able to change its direction.
Now, I do want to question you on one thing you said, not here, but somewhere else. I think you said, everybody talks to the feds. I'm just the one who's honest about it. Now,
I didn't say everybody.
Why do you think everybody?
Just to correct.
Okay.
I didn't say everybody. I said I'm not the only one, right?
Okay.
And so
My bad.
I happen to know. I'm not gonna go and fucking drag them into it, okay? But I happen to know at least 2 people whose names you would instantly recognize if I said them, had conversations with the FBI or reached out to the FBI, okay? And they don't go out and fucking tell people to do this, tell people about it because they see what I'm going through, right? You say, hey, here's what I told the FBI, and then a bunch of people go drag your name through the mud and say that you're lying about what you told the FBI. Well, no wonder they want to keep their mouths shut, right? How many people are talking to the FBI that I don't know about? Well, I'll tell you what, when you're involved in something as fucking dangerous as Charlottesville and that much pressure is applied to you, you'd be out of your mind to think that people who you respect are not talking to the FBI behind your fucking back and lying their asses off about it in public, okay? Because guys are going to fucking prison for, in some cases, up to a fucking decade over this thing. And if you think that people didn't cave over that, you're nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the more reason why we need to be careful and vet people very extremely. I think that's the lesson from a lot of this is just you have to really be careful because there's bad actors. There's it doesn't matter why they're doing it, but they're a problem and they're gonna get you in trouble sooner or later.
Exactly.
Now I still think that okay. So here we have a super chat from Zero Schizo. How Goitak losing? I guess how is Goitak losing 3 Streamlab accounts due to his collaboration with Jewish journalists? A reasonable reaction to the actions of Bull Patrol. So this is again sort of talking about like collateral damage.
This is, well, no. So fucking, it is objectively false that that's what caused them to lose it, right? What caused them to lose it is that they're violating the terms of service of the services that they're using. That's what caused it to happen.
But so is like a lot of people.
The reason that attention was brought to it is because angry white men conducted a months-long investigation, right? That's why that happened. And so the people who are trying to blame me for that are lying. I didn't do that. That's not my fault. I didn't do it. Okay. The fact that I asked Jared Holt if he would
can you clarify? Can you clarify what exactly the violation is?
It's hate speech. All right.
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay.
Right. You can't use YouTube and Streamlabs to attack the Jews. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows it, which is why they take the fucking videos down afterwards. You know what I'm saying? So if they're violating the terms of service and then they get their service terminated, well, welcome to the fucking club, asshole.
Just to be clear for people watching this, I have a strict no hate speech policy on my channel. There's no hate speech allowed.
Yeah. Well, something tells me, not that I watch the show regularly, but something tells me that the gas station has a different fucking policy, right? So like, you know, when your branding is that explicit, you know, don't fucking blame me when somebody figures out what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, and that's, like I said, that's why these guys, they do their streams, they take the fucking video down because they know they're going to get jammed up. The whole entire point of what they do is to obfuscate what they're doing so they don't get caught.
Well, they are, like you, an entertainment show, right? And so they try to be as edgy as possible, and they couch everything in... I agree with you.
Minecraft,
that's
definitely
why they...
Whatever, yeah. You know, but the thing is this, right? So like, but that's ultimately why they get deplatformed. Now, if we want to say that they shouldn't get deplatformed, you know, there shouldn't be a hate speech policy, fine. You know, then fucking let me go back on YouTube, right? You know, these guys are fucking using their, you know, I had upwards of 20,000 YouTube subscribers in August of 2017, right? If I hadn't gotten deplatformed, if I got to continue doing what I was doing, what does anybody fucking does anybody think that anybody would get away with doing this shit to me? No, they wouldn't. You know, I would have no fucking financial problems. I wouldn't give a shit what some anonymous retard said on the internet because I'd have a fucking platform to respond to it from, right? But because the people who they've adhered to, YouTube and Stripe, you know, deplatform me and they use those weapons against me dishonestly, like, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean... The hate speech thing is like, it's so vague. Like anybody could potentially be in violation of hate speech.
Of course, which is the whole point of it, right? The whole entire point of it is to be vague and obtuse, right? Like we get that, right? You know, and it's like, that's but and you see this happen all the time, right? So like, Jack Dorsey has said that fucking he could ban Donald Trump from Twitter for a lot of things he's done, but he's president of the United States, right? Richard Spencer still has a fucking Twitter account, but Jared Taylor doesn't, right? They're doing this selectively for a strategic fucking reason. You guys get to stay, you guys don't, and then we get to say, oh, well, we still have some standard that we're applying, which is a complete lie, and everybody knows it, right? The whole fucking hate speech thing is a scam, and I'm not standing up for that, right? It is just that that is the fucking system, right? And so, like, people said to me, why don't you just go make another YouTube channel? And I'm like, well, my understanding of it is that would put me in violation of their fucking terms, right? Like, I've been banned from YouTube. I can't just start... I can't, it's not like the Radical Agenda account got banned and then I just go create another one and keep on broadcasting the Radical Agenda. Every single thing you do is a contract violation. So
that is their policy with YouTube and Twitter. Once you get kicked off Twitter, you're kicked off for life. Interestingly, the Twitter, like Jack Dorsey was on Joe Rogan, as I mentioned, and they seem to be open to some kind of rehabilitation in the future. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing they're not going to be letting you back on anytime soon.
Well, not with the branding of the Radical Agenda anyway, right? And so, the point that I'm getting at is simply this, okay? Anybody who gets fucking deplatformed from Streamlabs or YouTube gets deplatformed from Streamlabs or YouTube because they are, in the judgment of Streamlabs and YouTube, in violation of their terms of service, okay? So if you're doing a Nazi podcast, you're being financed by Stripe, you're going to get deplatformed, and fucking it's just a question of when, okay? Now, I did send an email to Jared Holt asking, hey, would you like to call attention to these things which I have not yet informed you of? And rather than take the information, Jared Holt published my email. And then immediately after that, Angry White Men published their months-long investigation, okay? They did that on purpose in order to have me, to get the alt-right to blame me because they benefit from the internecine conflict, right? And so what is everybody doing? Well, if I'm a bad actor for asking Jared Holt if he would like information, how bad of an actor are the people who are now saying I got Goy Talk deplatformed? Because I objectively didn't do that. Everybody who's honest knows that I didn't do that. Everybody who says that I got them deplatformed is lying, and they're adhering to Angry White Men. They're adhering to YouTube and Stripe.
That's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on. I mean, a lot of reasons. I haven't talked to you for a while, but yeah, and I like talking to you. But I wanted you to clear that up because a lot of people think, oh, he got like this whole list of people deplatformed, all of the ones that Right Wing Watch went after, but that's not.
It wasn't even Right Wing Watch that went after them, right? It was Angry White Men, right? So like the whole thing, and any honest person who looked at it knows this. So they're lying on purpose, which just goes to the fucking point, right? I said this from the beginning. I'm like, these people are dishonest actors, which is why I want to deplatform them in the first place, right? And then they get deplatformed due to their own fucking actions. And then they blame me for it. Why? Because they're fucking liars, which is why the conflict ensued to begin with.
Right, but do you see that? I guess I'm wanting you to take some responsibility for the fact that you kind of walked into this trap that Jared Holt set up for you, or whoever he was working with, because now you've taken the fall for this. And yeah, it's not right that they don't believe you, but that's how the war is waged in a way. And so I think it backfired on you. So would you have done things differently if you had known this?
I might, if I had anticipated the outcome, I might have said, hey, I want to talk to you off the record before I told him something, right? But yeah. At the end of the day, like I said, I would have taken credit for it anyway if I had actually done it, right? But the thing is this, all right? And I did the same exact thing with the libertarians, and I met all sorts of friction there, right? I don't run around trying to gain people's fucking approval, okay? And so, in my opinion, what's happening right now is ultimately a good thing. It's a pain in the ass. I hate these temporary setbacks, but it's ultimately a good thing. These guys will all wash out, okay? Everybody who's lying about me right now is exposing themselves for a liar. I have invested a great deal of fucking time and effort and suffering into building a reputation as an honest person. These guys are trashing their own reputations by telling demonstrably false lies that they know are lies, And so they are going to wash out ultimately, based on reputation. That's how I view this thing. And I don't think that we can accomplish anything as a movement, as a race, as a nation, if we don't start weeding out dishonest actors. And so this is, in my opinion, it's a pain in the ass. Is this the most efficient way to deal with it? I don't know, but I did not see another course. And so I'm happy to go through this in that sense, because it does some much needed hygiene.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think when people listen to your podcast for long enough, that I think they will come to see sort of that honesty. That you're right. You've spent a lot of energy building up the show and everything, which is great. There's also the other component, which is the edginess, and that's maybe people don't realize it's kind of a marketing strategy for you, right? They these Vice News and everything, they tell these lies about well, again, they slander you, they call you names and white supremacist and so on, and then they once people are curious about you because I don't know, they hate you so much, then they go listen to your podcast,
right,
and hopefully that changes their minds about things. The same thing could be said about David Duke. They've done this with David Duke, and then people go and actually listen to them, and it changes their minds. So yeah, I think
nobody who listens to the Radical Agenda believes a word of this shit, right? I have not lost a single paying subscriber in the course of this thing. Okay, I think maybe half a dozen people left my Telegram group in the course of this conflict, right? And half of them I banned. So like I don't fucking lose when this happens. Anybody who pays any attention to me, knows that I'm the honest actor, right? Now, it is unfortunate in the extreme that I don't have a larger audience, and these things are setbacks in terms of the growth of the Radical Agenda and other things that I'm doing. But like, how do we go about weeding out the fucking dishonest actors is an exercise that, is worthy of some consideration. If somebody has better advice on it, I'm happy to listen. But like when I'm raising these concerns, what I'm finding is a great deal of inaction. People are like, well, I'm making money from super chats and fucking, and so I don't care that I'm surrounded by liars and crooks. Well, fuck you. You can't, you're not going to be able to build a successful political movement on that unless you want to be a communist. So, it's something that has to get done. And so, and I've never, my strategy never was to become the most popular guy and start winning fucking elections on my own, right? Like I need a hardcore cadre of radical ideologues who's willing to, try to do something more than win the next fucking election, right? And so if I am hated by the vast majority of people, but I grow slowly but steadily a hardcore following, then I accomplish my my goals. Okay, and so and that's the other component of this is what I don't see a whole lot of fucking goals being discussed in most of this movement, by the way, and so I have a view that the outcome of this thing is going to require political power for us to have any positive outcome, and people who are screaming, no, let Donald Trump lose in 2020 and let the Democrats take control of the federal government because that'll bring the race war here faster. Seems to me that like a bunch of guys who fucking throw me under the bus after I fucking go to jail and bleed for this thing and not people you'd want to follow into a combat zone, And so, I'm probably off on a fucking tangent at this point. Feel free to bring me back on point, but like,
oh, that's okay.
My view of it is we need to get some really determined, honest, good people into an area, geographically concentrate and obtain political power. That is not going to be done with a bunch of dishonest fucking people who can't show their faces in public.
All right, well, okay, before I read the super chats, I think there's two I haven't read. So there's okay, so transparency. Would you say that there's such a thing as too much transparency then? Because isn't that partly how you've gotten in trouble is not necessarily with your audience, but just in general.
The thing is this, like you could make that case, obviously, right? With me, I don't.
Let me give you an example. Like JF has recently said that he'll post. He's unabashedly saying that if you DM him, he might post it or something. And I called him out on that in the stream once, and he was just like, yeah, I mean, that's what I assume to be the agreement, is that, it's not like I'm going to go dox every message that I have or anything, but if someone betrays me or something, I'm going to use that against them and put it out there. And that's not like a standard that I typically run on. So I was having trouble seeing eye to eye with him there in terms of, his policy on that. Because I think he had posted some message from Molyneux or some email and told people that they were emailing or something like that. But that's an example of transparency where people might have different standards of what they expect when they're dealing with comrades and colleagues and so on.
Well, but here's the thing, right? Everybody knows exactly what to expect from me, right? Anybody who's paying attention anyway, right? So like if I say what your expectations ought to be and you hold different expectations as you interact, well, then you are going to be disappointed, friend, And so if somebody tells you what the fucking rules are and you decide to engage or not engage, well, that's the option that, somebody has. Now, I'll speak to the broader point about too much transparency by saying, this is in part like a character flaw on my part. Okay. Like I just don't know how to fucking politic. Right. And so my concern becomes if I'm not straightforward, first things first, I have to hold my fucking self accountable. Okay. Because I do make mistakes. Right. And so I say what I'm doing for better or worse. And then I try to interpret the feedback, about whether or not my actions are honorable or whatever. Right now, that becomes difficult to do when you have a bunch of dishonest people creating fake accounts and defaming you. And so like I have to tune that out and sort of like I have a handful of trusted advisors who I consult with, right? But like, I have obviously made fucking mistakes, fucking drinking, I went on a fucking drug binge years ago, people obviously fucking have, reasons to, take issue with some of the things that I've done. And so like, I make my mistakes fucking known and then I atone for them, Are there better ways of doing that? Yeah, perhaps, but it works for me, and I also like, since the Radical Agenda is a live, uncensored, open phones talk show, it's difficult for me to put things through a filter. It's a tragedy for me just that I have this court order that I can't mention certain people, right? There are things that I can't talk about for legal reasons. And so like, that is this huge problem for me as it is. How many filters do I have to put something through when I speak rapidly for 2 hours on camera live with a bunch of people calling in and asking me questions out of the blue? It becomes too much of a cognitive challenge for me to put things through all of those filters,
I see. Yeah, I mean, definitely if something jeopardizes you legally, then you definitely don't want to talk about that. That makes a lot of sense.
But more to the point is that, like, just the over transparency of what I've engaged in has certainly been a weakness. It's something that, for better or worse, you can just make whatever ethical judgments about it people want. It's a weakness. It prevents me from being as effective as I could otherwise be.
Okay, what's an example of that, if you can think of one?
Well, there's a good case to be made that I should have never fucking informed anybody that I talked to the FBI, right? And then this way, since I'm not doing anything shitty, right? Since I'm not fucking my friends over, I haven't done anything unethical by talking to the FBI, and so there's no reason for me to atone for it in public. But because I understand that this can create other fucking problems if it were to be discovered later, I say it in advance so that I don't get jammed up about this and I find myself defending myself, right? If I, towards the end of last year, I started drinking too much, right? And so I said, go ahead.
I was going to ask you another question. Is there anything that you've told the FBI that you haven't told everyone else? And if there are legal issues, I understand if you don't want to answer that.
No, I've been 100% completely upfront about what I've told the FBI. I told everybody what I told them. I told the FBI about Philly Antifa and they're conspiring with the locals down there in Charlottesville. I informed the FBI about the guy, the identity of the guy who maced me on August 12th. I informed the FBI about Jordan Jareb, and then when the Dylan Roof fan club defaced the website, I told the FBI that the website was defaced, largely as a self-defense mechanism, since they were contacting the FBI in my name by doing so. And so, I filed an electronic complaint with the FBI through their website when that happened. That is exactly what I've told the FBI, and I haven't kept any secrets in that regard.
Gotcha. All right, so Dan Man sent 5. Cantwell has said the movement is more important than any single. Okay, so this person is criticizing you for something.
They can criticize. Go ahead. Just if they're paying you, read their super chat.
Yeah, that's the way. Which this question is actually related to that and the shekels. He's saying, is the movement more important than your show?
The movement is more important than my show, but my show is more important than dishonest people who defame me, right? So like this is I don't know who made that thing, so I can't fucking assassinate his motives personally. But like, have you not been listening for the last fucking hour and a half, right? Like, if people are going out and they're being dishonest and they're trying to destroy the fucking radical agenda, well, then those people are not advancing the best interest of the movement, and fucking doing away with them is a solid plot, right? And so, is the movement more important than a radical agenda? Sure. But who is trying to destroy the radical agenda? Nobody who has the best interest of the movement in heart.
Right. And it is, I mean, you do have a stronger case given that you spent all this time in jail. I mean, I think I've heard people call you a warrior for the cause, which that's actually a good question. Did you want to sort of be in this role, or are you more of a victim of circumstances, if you will?
Well, I mean, look, I did not want to be getting into any fucking fights down there. The whole entire point, the whole entire point of that damn body camera video that I gave to the FBI was we were supposed to be coordinating with law enforcement. So, the failure of law enforcement to do their jobs got me involved in a violent conflict. But of course, when I show up on UVA campus, the cops are nowhere to be found. Eli Mosley's barking out orders saying, okay, if you don't have a torch, you're security. Well, I guess I'm security now. It's just something that happened. Like, it's not something that I fucking asked for. And then sure enough, a fight broke out, and unlike most people with reputations in this thing, I didn't run away from that conflict. I stayed and I fought.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that part about the security. I hadn't heard that part.
Yeah, they say if you don't have a torch, stay on the outside. You're supposed to confront the Reds if they attack us. That was like the beginning of this thing, and I'm like, and I'm fucking terrified, frankly, because I'm like, the whole, these people are fucking dangerous. I've been watching this, I covered the fucking Antifa riot crap on the radical agenda for months before this, right? So like, I was fucking legitimately scared, right? Like I remember, as a matter of fact, it's on somebody else's live stream. And one guy goes, oh, there's too many of us. Nobody's going to fuck with us. And I said, it only takes one bike lock guy to put you in the ICU. Keep your fucking eyes open, right? And it's the truth. These people had fucking expandable batons, pepper spray. Like, they came there to fucking, these people came loaded for bear. And so, violence broke out. I'm fit for combat. I fought, and I don't, in and of itself, I don't consider that fucking all that remarkable, frankly, right? Like, if you and I are walking down the street doing some non-Nazi stuff and a couple of guys attack us, I'm not going to fucking let them jump you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to fight. And so, like, I don't think, like, that's all that fucking remarkable, frankly, but, like, everything that happened afterwards was like, yeah, I got really fucking screwed. And at first, the movement was very supportive. The GoFundMe thing, people raised money. I mean, thank God they did, but it seems to me that, like, once it became apparent that I wasn't going to prison, people with fucking influence in this thing threw me under the bus, and then the whole attitude changed.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to some of these guys who, I don't know if it was Goy Talk or somebody else, but somebody was telling me that some of their stream revenue, like, they said it doesn't all go to them. Some of it they were raising for the guys in prison. So that is kind of a shame.
I don't claim to have access to their fucking financial records. I'm not saying,
Oh, yeah.
These guys are saying to me that I'm doing this for the shekels, and anybody who believes that is a retard. You know what I'm saying? I could fucking throw everybody under the bus right now, okay? If I wanted to, I could go fucking send it, I could go fucking call Christian Piccolini and be like, hey, I'm ready to sell out now. Can I get paid to go run around giving fucking talks about how I got out of the Nazi? I could do this if I wanted to, okay? And instead of doing that, I said, okay, guys, once a week, I'm going to do a show where I'm not attacking Jews for 2 hours, and I'm going to call it Outlaw Conservative so I can try to make a living. And then people tried to destroy that, right? And so, and so I'm trying to fucking, play both roles here in order to try to fucking make a living. And people forget that I was a professional broadcaster before I got into the alt-right. The alt-right got me fired from my fucking broadcast radio job, And so, people say, go get a regular job and then keep podcasting. This is my regular job, you fucking asshole, And so, the idea that I'm doing this for money when I fucking, I could go make more money in IT if I wanted to. In New Hampshire, a legal name change costs $150. You could do it in an afternoon. Okay. I could be out of this thing tomorrow if I wanted to. And instead, I'm doing the things that I believe in, and I'm fighting for causes that I think are worthwhile, and I'm suffering tremendously in as my fucking reward. And you got a bunch of fucking people with no reputations who are lying their asses off and being given platforms by the same people who are like, no, I gave some of my money to a guy who was in jail. Well, fucking, I was one of those guys who was in jail, right? I watched when Heel Turn split up, Augustus Invictus made a video and talking about, the status of Heel Turn or whatever. He says, and we've raised enough money to get all our guys their commissary until the end of the year or whatever. Okay, fantastic. Who are you defining as your guys? Okay, because I'm still getting calls from Alex Ramos and these guys who I was locked up with, and they're not taken care of. Okay, so like if they're just exclusively focusing on RAM, fine, but maybe you want to say that because saying that you're donating money to them and it's going to our political prisoners. In the case of Alex Ramos, it's not. Okay, so I don't know exactly what they're doing. I don't doubt that they spend money on worthwhile things, but I'm not the one who's out fucking accusing people of thinking that they're going to get rich at this, by the way, You're fucking saying that I'm doing this for fucking shekels. I could go back to broadcast radio, throw everybody on the bus, and I wouldn't have to worry about any of this shit anymore.
No, I definitely don't think that's your sole motivation. Like with the libertarian thing, like libertarians do understand that it doesn't make sense unless you have like a big government force or you're a large corporation who can lobby the government. Like it just doesn't make sense to go after your competitors. Like most entrepreneurs know that, like, because you spend more time going after them, and it's that old thing. The multiple gas stations all cluster around the corner, and it's actually better business for all of them in a way. So, I mean, people who make that argument that, oh, you're just shilling, I think maybe they really took you literally when you wrote this email to Jared Holt. Now, some people are asking me to bring on Southern Dingo.
No.
I don't think I want to do that.
Absolutely not. Fucking Senpai guys is never going to notice you, faggot. Go away.
I know that he has his own podcast, and I'm not going to say bad things about him. I don't really.
Southern Dingo has been fucking begging to get into my fucking inner circle for fucking over a year now, and he's been rejected at every fucking turn. And now and just like this other fucking faggot whose name is not going to get mentioned here, he's upset that his love is unrequited, and so he joins in with my enemies. It's nothing new.
Yeah, I mean it's probably a lot of the same things, but we do have some more super chats. So, Ozpin88, this situation is very simple. Cantwell wanted Heel Turn Vanguard down because of Joachim. He's, quote, gone, and no one is publicly defending him. Can Goitok just disavow Joachim, and we're done with this shit? Sounds to me like he just wants some resolution and wants people to move on.
Yeah, I'm happy to move on for the most part. Now, what's pissing me off is that, they're not doing that, right? They're lying, right? They're still telling people that I got them deplatformed, which is a lie, which means that they are liars, which, which has a broader implication. Is that something that I really want to spend a lot of time pursuing? No. But, yeah. We're here talking about it because it's a timely and relevant issue that you invited me to talk on,
Sure.
It's not, it was hilarious to me. I do. I shouldn't let them know this, but I have been watching the chat, right? And so somebody says that I went after Goitalk's website. The reason they have that impression is because I posted a screenshot of the goitalk.com who is in my Radical Agenda Telegram group, and it was total bait. There's no interesting information in that screenshot. It's just their who is publicly available information. And I posted this screenshot and I said, aha. And then their spies came out of the woodwork, right? And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you, right? And people are just fucking panicking about it. As far as I'm concerned, my target was fucking Joaquin, okay? Now, in the course of that, what I figured out is that we have more dishonest people involved in this thing than I had originally been under the impression of, and that's exceedingly unfortunate. How much fucking time and energy do I want to, expend on dealing with that problem? Not a whole lot, because in my opinion, these people will wash out over time anyway.
All right, so then Ed sends a super chat. How come you attacked Stryker on Gab when Stryker refused to attack you on the charity stream last night?
So I don't think that what I did was an attack. What I said was, I heard that Stryker attacked me on Goy Talk. Unsurprising, the integrity of this thing has obviously been drained out of a long time ago, and now we're just waiting for the last handful of idiots to figure out that they're being ripped off by the people who are still being broadcast by YouTube and Stripe. Stryker, by the way, before I posted that, I went to look for Stryker's Gab account, and I didn't find it. And I said, did this guy delete his Gab account or mute me, or what the fuck happened, right? So when I did not find him on Gab, then I made that post. Later on, Stryker came onto the comments of that, and he disputed the charge and said, go listen to the stream. Well, I have better things to do than listen to the stream, but if Stryker tells me that is not what happened, then I'm willing to take Stryker's word for it. And then as soon as I saw that, I deleted the post. Now, I don't think I was attacking. I said, this is what I heard. I'm unhappy about it. This movement is in sorry shape. And I thought that was, given the information I had available at the time, it seemed like a reasonable thing to say. The second that Stryker disputed the case, well, without even trying to confirm what he said, I just deleted the post. I took his word for it.
All right. Well, hopefully that clears up that question. Well, my summary of all this is, yes, I agree with you. There are bad people. I think it's on each of us to look at the mistakes that we might have contributed to, right? As a Christian, there is that verse about looking at the speck of dust in your own, or maybe it's the log in your own eye. But even if you only have a speck of dust, that's worth looking at. And obviously other people have these logs in their eyes too. And we have to do something about it. Jesus drove the merchants out of the temple, so he was righteous and everything. I think that if we can do both of those things, try to vet people in the future, and just look within ourselves and figure out, why did I make some of these mistakes around trusting these people or so on. Hopefully we can rectify this, because I don't think this is the outcome that anyone wanted. I don't think you wanted this either. So it seems to be an unfortunate thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if our enemies had some kind of a hand in it. And
well, that's exactly what I believe to be the case.
Yeah.
And it's like, and look, I am respectful of people who have careers and stuff that they have to protect, and they're operating as honest, good people who have to keep their names a secret. But, the unfortunate reality of this thing is that, the anonymity thing provides a really perverse incentive, and it is definitely being exploited by our enemies. They get to come in here, and it amounts to, like I said before, Jared Howe made the comparison the other day to black bloc tactics. It's basically what this is that you don't know who's who, and then a bunch of people go out and fucking do something, and it's like, the only thing that you can do is attack the group, okay? But ultimately, as time goes forward, we're gonna have to figure out ways of overcoming this. If any asshole, if any Hasbara Mossad asshole can go create a new Google account and fucking sabotage what it is that we're trying to do here, then we're going to fail. Okay. And so we've got to figure out ways to get through this. People have to, take reputation seriously, and nothing is going to get solved without that vital component. And so, this might not have been the best way of dealing with it, but it had to be dealt with one way or another. And I'm glad that it's getting dealt with.
Right, and I do also want to again point out, like, there is value in suffering, and you've definitely gone through a lot of suffering. I mean, man, the Jewish people, they have such reverence towards Holocaust survivors, and in a way, Charlottesville is a kind of a Holocaust for us. So, you really gotta respect someone, even if you have disagreements with them. At least they were there on the front lines, and that does count for something. And if anything, people can call you shill or whatever, but you definitely got balls.
Well, thanks. And like I said, I mean, I try fucking hard to make myself accountable to this thing, and if people who say otherwise are fucking liars, and eventually, like I said, that is something that will wash out over time. I don't need to convince the masses, but you've got a problem going on within the movement, that people are literally behaving worse than the Jewish press. They're literally worse than Vice News. They're worse than CNN, in that they will absolutely just fabricate nonsense and repeat it ad nauseum, to the point that what they did to the Covington Catholic school kids looks responsible by comparison. And I think that's something that really needs to get addressed. And I think that it's going to happen, however the issue gets forced, and we'll get through it. I'm used to, like I said, I went through this with the libertarians for years. Right. And so, it's not unusual that, like, I've got to, sort of power through this mess of internet hysteria. It's just not news to me, and anybody who wants to do anything positive in this thing is going to have to get used to shit like that.
All right. Well, that's a good place to leave it, I think.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just we'll see you guys next time.
All right, fantastic. Take care.